Yo, everyone, what is going on? I am going live with Bob, and we are going to be talking about all things stress, what stressors are, identifying some problems that they cause both mentally and physiologically, how they can impact not only your gains, but also just your overall sanity, and then also discuss ways of troubleshooting stressors and kind of managing through them so that way you understand that you are not a victim of your stress, you are actually the captor. So I'm going to have him join us and we'll get this party started. Get him in on the first try. Sometimes it likes to play games. Yo,
What up?
John.
How are you?
I'm okay. Do me a favor, pronounce your last name for me, please.
Kutneski,
Is that German or Polish or neither?
Polish.
Hell yeah. Okay, like it, like it. So you know what you did you grow up on pierogies?
Always. You know it.
I love it. Okay, I knew I liked you. So, fun fact, my stepdad is Polish. And so we grew up on pierogies and we grew up on cabbage rolls. So even though I'm not personally
Mhm.
Polish, I dig the food.
Yeah. Anytime you see an SKI at the end of the last name, it's a dead giveaway.
Well, I figure, but at the same time, like you also just never know because like my maiden name is Fish, but that's technically illegal. It used to be I can't even remember. But like when they were doing the census back then and there was no way to like prove that you were wrong, like my however many greats just was like, nope, I don't want this anymore. Oh, it was Lynch. It was Lynch. So it was more Irish,
hmm
right? He's like, yeah, I don't want to be Lynch. I want to go with my stepdad's last name, which was Fish. And so he's like, I'm John Fish now. And who the fuck was gonna correct him? Like, like who was gonna say boo? You
Wow.
know?
Yeah. That's funny. Because it's weird too, because like my last name's Kupneski, right? But I'm mostly Italian because my cousins are Bizarros. So you're like, how does that make sense? Exactly. Exactly. That's what
I
I'm
love
saying.
it.
How's your
I
day
love
been?
it.
Good?
Dude, honestly, life to talk about this is like the perfect time to talk about stress. Like I'm like looking like over my shoulder for the Grim Reaper because I had two deaths this week in my family on one of each side. So I'm
Mm.
just like looking like, okay, is it me next? Like what the fuck's going on, you know? But like it's so important to understand, like you and I were talking about like earlier, that like each day is a gift. You know what I'm saying? Like we are not guaranteed tomorrow. Like both time and death are undefeated. So like make the most of whatever it is that you've been given because like you're just there's no guarantees. You know what I'm saying?
I agree. And I think the biggest thing that we can take away from this whole conversation we're about to have is not only what is stress, types of stress, what it affects, just some good statistics and data for those geeks out there
Mm-hmm.
that really like them. But honestly, the number one thing is people aren't even aware of their own stressors.
Mm-hmm.
Their awareness, their environment, how they behave, how they act, their habits.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last thing I want to talk about is time.
Yeah.
Like you said, we don't even realize how short life
Mm-hmm.
is, how many times we repeat the same behavior. And for instance, the data I gave you was humans have 70,000 thoughts per day, which you think is probably crazy, but 50,000 of them are negative, which is
Mm-hmm.
about 80%, right? Give or take. But the key thing here is 95% of those thoughts repeat themselves. So people who continually make these errors, it's a vicious cycle. And
Mm-hmm.
as coaches, how many times have we consulted with someone? We see a behavior, we see a trend, it's like somehow got to fix it. And then 4, 5, 6 weeks later, same thing's happening.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like, unfortunately, we're creatures of habit, but like those
hmm
habits can either be good or bad depending upon kind of like what wolf we feed, you know? And I like to start from like a personal perspective because I feel like sometimes as coaches, we are put on a pedestal and in good regards because we are in a seat of leadership and we are like, hopefully, figures to look up to as an example. But that does not like mean that we are, not prone to having our own
hmm
stress, our own demons, our own baggage, of course. And someone for me that also suffers from obsessive compulsive tendencies, like talk about those thoughts and the repetitiveness and the negativity. Like that's something that used to rule my life, and it was something of just such awful negative self-talk, constantly self-guessing, hyperfixating on variables that my it was my coach's job to worry about, but like it was
Mhm,
still the fear of letting go of control because as a kid, like trauma growing up, all I could control was
mhm.
my food and stuff like that. So like even stemming from like childhood, you don't even know like what weeds have been planted in your garden and what flowers have been choked out. Then when you're an adult, like you have to literally manage your own garden, pull out weeds, grow new seeds, grow new flowers, and it can be very, very overwhelming. But I think a big one that clients kind of miss over is the overstimulation from the ease of access. Like the technology, like even though you're in, where are you, Pennsylvania?
Yep,
Yeah,
yep.
you're killing it. You're Pennsylvania, I'm South Carolina. But like, you and I were just shooting the shit like not 5 hours ago. And it's like we
Mhm,
live, okay, maybe 15 hours apart. So
mhm.
it's like the ease of accessibility, being addicted to screens, being addicted to stimulation, liking to be busy, because usually that's like an avoidance tendency.
Yeah, and the problem with being busy is so many people are busy, but they're not productive. Time management, the first thing we talked about, time and awareness,
Mhm.
right? Anyone can get on their phone, anyone can get on a screen, anyone can get on a laptop and just waste their day, right?
Yep.
Because, like you said, when we get on social media, when we get on these platforms, what is it? It's information overload.
Mhm.
And so many people like finding a coach. You want to find someone who's transparent, who's trustworthy. But the problem is, you open Instagram and you scroll, you see thousands of coaches. So you're like, where do I start? That's overwhelming. And then you try and narrow it down and you're like, you start second guessing yourself. So you're like, okay, here we go. Negative self talk, self sabotage. Then you think about unrealistic expectations. I want to hire one of these coaches, but if I give them my goal, are they just going to laugh at me? Right?
Mhm.
Because we see that all the time. It's like, hey, in 3 months, I want to drop 10 pounds, but also I want to gain 5 pounds of muscle. And it's like, hold up, stop right there.
Oh my
But,
goodness.
and I think one other big thing here is just like you talked about the negative thinking, but the rigid thinking, right? They are so prone to having these unrealistic expectations. It's so much of a mental strain for them because it's a constant worry because it's like, how do I get from A to B in this quick fashion?
Mhm.
When in reality, this isn't a race. It's a marathon. You hire someone, you hire a coach, but I personally like to call it an investment,
Yeah.
right? You're paying for a service, but at the same time, that service you get from a coach is that investment.
Mhm.
You got to make deposits into a bank. And if you can't make enough deposits, you can't withdraw. Just like people who always want to diet. You have nothing to withdraw from a bank account because you've overspent. Your body's taxed. You have nothing to get rid of.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Absolutely.
it's a constant vicious cycle, but those are like the major internal stressors, right, that we talked about. And then when you look at it from an external factor, the biggest thing that we probably see in clients is relationships. That's
Mhm.
probably the number one downfall of most people. Next to that is financials. And then you can look at other things depending on the age of the client, which could be like their family, right? Like you said, you lost two people.
Mhm.
The older we get, the more we're going to see it. I'm sure if you went into your high school yearbook and you started flipping through the pages, you're just like, I don't even know if this person's still alive. I
Yeah,
don't know what they're doing. But I looked at mine the other day, no joke, and I was like, half these people probably passed away.
that's wild. I know we had one in our class that passed away.
Mm-hmm.
And like just for reference, I'm 28, so
Yeah,
like that's sad.
yeah, yeah. I'm much older than you, but still, it's
I
like,
wouldn't have guessed. I thought we were like 4 years.
no, I'm 36. I'm old. Yeah, I don't look 36. I still act
No,
like I'm
you
21 though.
don't.
No, I still get carded all the time, and I don't even drink.
That's Bob. Who's your coach?
I don't know. Good question. Who's your coach?
Happy Check-in Tuesday, by the way.
That's right. Love it. But yeah, some of those external factors like we talked about there. So what? Family's a big one. Sometimes with how you're raised in trauma, right? Financials. People are always hard pressed for money nowadays. The job market's very hard.
Yeah.
Um, what else do we talk about here? Relationships is the big one. And then depending on the age of the client, right? I had a girl that was in high school going to college, and her biggest decision was where does she want to go to college? And she wanted to go to a top level school like Harvard, right? She was super smart, AP, A's in all of her classes, and her biggest fear was being rejected from a college. And you don't control that. And that's another big stressor we'll talk about is fighting battles you can't fight.
Mhm.
And then I think one of the other last things outside of those major ones is major life events, right? And death can be one of them. You live down south, right? Hurricane season, you don't control that.
That's right.
You just went through that not too long ago,
That's
right?
right. I was sleeping. Yeah, one night we got like a cell phone alert at 1 a.m. being like, "Oh, hey, there's a tornado in your area. Go seek shelter." So we pulled some pillows, made a little fort in the bathroom, like put the cats in there with us, and we're like, "Okay, this is what we're doing this night."
How bad was it?
Honestly, it was like, yeah, we had a big limb fall in our yard, but like
Mhm,
thankfully, like nothing crazy. We're more inland. We're not like downtown Charleston, so it wasn't awful. But downtown got really flooded,
mhm.
like really flooded.
So what are you like northwest of Charleston?
Yeah, so Charleston's on the peninsula. We're gonna
Mhm,
be more northwest for sure. So like kind of in between like North Charleston and Somerville, if you're like ever familiar with that
mhm,
area. But we're in a town called Goose Creek, which I think is so fucking funny. It's just like such a honky tonk place, but
mhm.
it's my honky tonk place.
Are you between like there and Greenville
So
almost?
Greenville's I think gonna be more like inland, like not
Mhm.
quite on the border because Greenville's more like it's like 3 hours away from
Oh
us.
wow.
Hmm. It's a
Yeah.
nice place though.
I've heard. Yeah, we've had a couple people that were local here that moved down there. And Brandy, she competes in the NPC, and she's a high level competitor.
Mhm.
I'm sure you probably heard of Jack Sullivan. He coaches a lot of national level shows and things like
Mhm.
that. The Arnold the Olympia. So Jack's from here, right? And Brandy was one of Jack's clients. Jack had his own gym. He still has his own gym here. He does his thing. So, you know, the competing thing, it runs around the city up here. So yeah.
Absolutely. That actually kind of reminded me of another stressor. It's like more environmental. So even like we're thinking of like, do you work at like what's your occupation? Is there like influences involved that cause stressors? Like I just got my hair done today, and like hairdressers, those people are really hammered hard with like toxins and chemicals on a daily basis. Like being stuck in traffic could be potentially a stressor depending upon your mindset. Like, your coworkers could also be like that toxic mentality, that toxic energy. Like, oh, here it is Monday, like back to the grind. Like, just like that wet blanket negative like personality where like everything is like an inconvenience. Doing your job is an inconvenience. They just live to like get shit faced over the weekend. You know what I'm saying? Like all of those things can definitely impact your perception around you, and like we'll get into like your perception of what is going on in your life, how you react to the stressor kind of dictates how you experience stress or maybe don't experience stress when it comes to the physiological component.
Yeah, and I agree with you too. So, like, let's say, for example, like if we talk from a coaching perspective when we look at stress, one of the first things that I'm sure you do is with an intake form is you ask those questions, which I think is very important, right? Whenever you have a conversation with anyone, it doesn't matter if they're, a coach client, anyone in your real life, your social life, your personal inner circle, you have to ask the right questions because if you don't
Mhm.
understand the person, you don't know where they came from,
Yep.
right? And then down the line, if you start seeing habits and trends and behaviors, you start to question like, have
Mhm.
you always done this? Why are you doing this? And what's the premise of it? And then you have to backtrack,
Yep.
and then you have to rewire, and then you have to go back to what you said earlier, which you dug those roots, you planted them, the seeds grew. What do you have to do? You have to cut it out and you have to start fresh, which is
Exactly.
very hard for a lot of people. And not only, like you said, in life, it could be in work, it could be a 10-year toxic relationship
Yep.
where you have to look yourself in the mirror and have that hard conversation. Hell, one of the girls I have today, 14-year relationship, and she would tell me for years, I've been with her for 3 years,
Mhm.
she's always stressed out. And it just kept coming back to the other half. And it's
Yeah.
like, got to have that conversation. And she finally did. And she's very weak to speak up because she was always one that just took everything, right?
Yep.
She made all the money, she did all the chores, she would take care of all the kids. And at the end of the day, it's like, where's the balance? And then when you start having that conversation, it's like, okay, there is a problem.
Yeah.
Then it's like, how do you address the problem? Well, the husband doesn't want to go to marriage counseling, of
Mhm.
course. And not to say that all dudes are crappy. Sometimes some girls are crappy, not stereotyping. But what's a relationship? A happy medium, a trust, a bond, your vows. When you get married, you put a ring on someone's finger. That's the first thing you talk about.
Yep.
So it's sometimes it's You got to take one step back, take two steps forward. And I think as a coach, it's very vital to see that in your client
Mm-hmm.
because, it's very easy to sell someone a workout program. It's very easy to give someone macros. It's very easy to give you a food plan. But if you're very diligent and you look into these other factors, right, a healthy mind is always going to lead to a healthy body. So how do you first do that? You start asking these questions. So I think the biggest thing for me is like when I talk to clients, I think the most trending things that I see, and you can correct me with what you see, right? Relationships, work is a big one, like you talked about, right? They're mistreated. People are people pleasers. They wear their heart on their sleeves. They say yes to everything. And the
Mm-hmm.
biggest problem, their boundaries.
Or lack thereof.
Bingo.
Yeah,
Nobody knows how to draw a line in the sand, and because of it, they just get walked on.
exactly. I will say, I think, oh, well, I'll do the countdown as I set them off, but these are some of the most powerful questions I ask on my intake form, and it has nothing to do with your diet, it has nothing to do with your exercise. My question number one is your spouse or significant other supportive of you and your goals?
Mhm.
What is your job? Like, what are your stress levels related to your job? How much sleep are you getting? And then tell me what your weekday and weekends look like. How do you spend your time? And with those, so I guess four questions, I essentially know almost everything about you in terms of where we need to start. And before I even look at your diet and your exercise, which is at the very end of my intake form. So I almost
Mhm.
list out my intake form kind of like blood work, where it's like the most important shit's at the top. I want to know what's going on up here. Because it doesn't matter. I could tell you to eat like, whatever the hell. But if you're stressed out, you don't have a supportive significant other, you're not sleeping enough. The big thing, dude, especially with like we get these type A people, again, hello, type A. Like, I ask them their hobbies or what they do on the weekend. It's like, oh, well, I go to the gym, I walk, I watch TV. I'm like, okay, do you have friends? Do you see people? Like,
Yep.
where's your social bar? Like, I'm not saying and supporting that you need to go out to BW3s and get like 5 pints of like fat tire, but like for crying out loud, like go see your buddies, like go play mini golf, go play Scrabble. Like we literally had friends over who like they're having a hard time too because everyone's going through shit. We had time for crafts. Like we literally took a tube of toilet paper, like just like the inner tube, and we like glued it together to make like a fucking cat and painted it.
That's
It
awesome.
was like an hour, but like we just got to talk and spend time with one another, and that filled up my social bar. But it's like if you don't have hobbies other than lifting weights, that's a problem. If your
Yep.
significant other is not supporting you, if your job is like asking more than you can give, and you just feel like you are giving to everyone but yourself,
Mhm.
like that's problem number one that we need to identify. And of course, as coaches, we also need to understand our boundaries because we are not certified in therapy even though we can read all the books, we
Mhm.
can be empathetic, we can show relatability. We are still not qualified unless you are qualified to act as a mental health counselor. And so like getting someone into counseling, group therapy, one-on-one therapy, like that is such a valuable tool that as coaches we should be comfortable enough to be like, hey, listen, I want the best outcome for you, and I can do the health and the fitness, but we also need to make sure we get your noggin straight because at the end of the day, that matters for your long term success too.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that about like, we're not psychologists, right? We're
Mhm.
not therapists. That's why I have all these here because they're all like psychology books.
Yeah.
They're all about books about habits. And that's probably been the biggest thing I've done the last 18 months is read about psychology,
Will you
habits, the
send me
way
that stack, by the way? Will you send me the list?
I have about 25 more in
Oh
another room.
my God. Okay. Well, I'm like 10 books in, and I started reading again in
Mhm.
August. And like I said, I've read 2 books, some for pleasure, some for like self development. So if you would
Yep.
send me the list, I'd be very, very grateful.
Yeah, I have a bunch of different ones. And like this topic, we talk about stress too. Like you could follow it up with the psychology of
Mhm.
stress, the decision making, why people do the things they do. That you could talk about that for hours,
Mhm.
right? But I want to circle back to what you just talked about there with your client intake form and those four questions, right? And I think what's very important is a lot of people, if you ask them this question I'm going to give you right now, they don't have an answer. Show me your friends and I'll show you your future. First thing they're going to do is turn their phone around and say, look at my following. No, dude, show me
Those are your
your
friends.
actual, I know, right? Show me your actual friends in real life.
Mhm.
And to be honest with you, a lot of these people probably don't have any.
Yeah.
Like you said, they're very lonely. They spend extra time at work even if they don't need to, which is a lack of a boundary. One, they don't, and then they don't take care of their own sleep. Their stress is off the wall.
Mm-hmm.
And then, as you know, as a coach, when stress is high, what also happens, right? The scale fluctuate, plays mind games with them. Their GI gets backed up, then therefore they start to get bloated. If they track their blood glucose, what happens? That spikes.
Yep.
So, respiratory system can also be affected. Musculoskeletal system can also be affected. We talk about lack of pumps in the gym.
Yep.
What else could affect your hydration levels? There's so much. And honestly, if we were to nitpick every single piece of information, we'd be here for hours. And
Mm-hmm.
you and I don't have time for that. But
Yeah,
we can give you the
one I do want
synopsis.
to add is comfort eating or even suppression of appetite, because
Mm,
that can also be a big thing where people want to comfort eat, because
yep,
that goes back to childhood tendencies of like, oh, food is a comfort. Food is how my mom, my grandma, whoever showed love. And that was a big thing for me, was like secret eating, shame eating, but doing it out of comfort, which is why, like, I ballooned up to 250 pounds. Like, it was
yep.
because food was my comfort.
Yeah, me and you are same background, right? I was about 240, 250. I played offensive line
250.
and yeah, I played offensive line in high school and I blocked people that were 300 pounds, right? So I think coming from that background, we have a better understanding of the premise behind it because we've been there. We've walked that path. So it's like, one, we know how to get here.
Yep.
Two, we both were to the point where we were so anorexic it was disgusting.
Oh,
And then
dude.
three, let's not go there. Let's not
Talk
go
about
there.
a mental stress. Good God, that 80% negative thought, that would be like
Mhm.
95%
Yep.
on a good day.
Yeah. And you know what's crazy too? It's when I look at that statistic, when I first read it, and I actually got that from church because my church is wild. They will talk about the craziest things. They'll talk about sex. They'll talk about, negative thoughts, subconscious thoughts, all this wacky stuff, right? So I got that and I was like, you know what? I'm actually going to test that theory. So that was around the time when I had my shoulder surgery, this shoulder, and I was like, I'm just going to write down what the hell is going through my mind. And I kid you not, it was probably over 80% just because of that specific moment. And because like I couldn't even use my dominant arm, nothing was going right in my life. But even if I do it now, there's still a lot of ups and downs.
Sure.
So it shows you, even as a coach, we have blind spots
Oh, yeah.
and we can work on them, right? Our minds maybe aren't the best, but they're probably far better than they used to because of the path we walked. And I think that's vital because when you invest in someone like, you or me, it's like we've been there, we've done that. We know how to overcome this, but most of all, we can teach others
Yeah.
from our past experience. Now, look, we don't have all the tools in the shed. Like you said, we're not professionals. We're certified personal trainers. That's our scope of practice.
Yep.
Can we help with these people? Yes. Kitty time.
Anytime.
Yes. Always the star of the show, right?
I know she loves hearing people talk. She also likes male voices. I notice whenever I'm on a call with Austin, she'll just
She,
plop
you just
off.
hop on the laptop.
Literally,
Hmm.
yeah. She'll just knows her way in.
Then you'll start getting like all this gibberish on the keyboard, and it's like, it's not me, bro.
First everywhere, I know. But that's actually like, yeah, it's one of those things where stress relief, petting your animals, going outside, like free stuff like this.
Taking a
Taking
walk.
a walk.
Hmm. Yeah, it's amazing. A lot of the things in life are free that can set yourself apart, right? Like you said, just going out, right? Even if you just go to a bar, you don't even drink, and you just sit down, and you talk to someone.
Dude, Diet Coke with lime slaps. I don't give a fuck who you are. Like, I'll do that with Eric. Just like,
Hmm.
he'll go and get an appetizer, and I'm sitting there with my Diet Coke, happy as a clam. But again, it's not about the food or the beverage in my case. It's about like putting my phone on Do Not Disturb has been, I feel like, a game changer where it's like, I'm not just like sporadically like checking my phone for notifications. Something need me? Does someone need me? Like whatever. But then also just like taking time to read. Like I'm someone with very poor reading comprehension, and although yes, I am very smart, it's not like a gift. It's something that like I need like a repetitive exposure over and over again. So like anything that I learned is because I've had repeated exposure. And so just sitting down my phone on Do Not Disturb, reading something for fun, reading something that's like a murder mystery, or even reading like a self-improvement book has been vital in my own stress management for me to just take a beat and to simply be. And like that has been huge. And it was free because guess what? The library cards are free. Like that's so good to do that.
Yeah, and let me ask you this question too. How many of your clients do you talk to that tell you that they just scroll on their phone all the way up until they go to bed?
I've had a lot of conversations where I'll ask them, I was like, what do you like? How do you go to bed and how do you wake up? Like, is it like, because there's some people that they are so wanting to feel inclusive of having like this big, like, morning routine where they see their favorite bullshit influencer, like, touch grass, feed their baby cow, like, do all this other bullshit. I'm like, okay, what do you dude, what do you realistically want to do?
Hmm.
Like, do you want to go outside? Is it safe where you live? Like, do you even have access to a public park where you can go? Like, so it's like your morning routine does not need to be overly complicated. It just needs to wake you up where you are prepared to tackle your day. For me, I don't want to sit with a morning cup of coffee. I have so much energy in the morning. I want to walk. I want to do my vacuums. I want to drink my water.
Hmm.
Eric, he likes to wake up leisurely, feed the cats. He likes to get his yogurt granola bar. He likes to sit on the couch, drink some coffee, and read a book. Very different morning
Hmm.
routines, but that's how he centers himself for his day, while I'm being a tornado centering himself for my day. Because I like to feel productive when it is like 5 a.m. And the world is quiet. And that's my me time, even though it's not like sitting, it's doing. And that's just like how we live. And so finding your morning routine or finding your like bedtime routine is really important, but you need to figure it out for yourself. And for some people, like scrolling is just opening up a can of
Hmm.
worms because it's stupid. Like it's almost like Ed and Eddie. It's just pure like brain mush. It's like there's nothing you're gonna glean from this that's gonna change your life.
Yeah, I agree. So, like me and you, we have a very similar morning routine, right? I mean, we talk to each other at 5 a.m. in the morning most days, anyways. We wake up, we go on a walk,
Yep.
probably stretch a little bit, mobility work, and
Oh,
then for
dude,
me,
yes, I
yeah,
do.
yeah, I usually use like a rumble roller. I use some bands, hip mobility work. That's been huge game changer for everything.
Yep.
Um, Other than that, like I come home and then like I head off to work and then I come home and then usually I'll go like lift at night. Like I lift 4 times a week. So three
Same.
off days, 4 days, and then I usually train mostly Saturday, Sundays, and then I sprinkle in throughout the week 2 other days just because you work a full-time job, you got to go grocery shopping, you got to prep your food. There's other things you got to check, right? And then for nighttime routine, right? I am so basic, right? Like you, do not disturb. I think 8 o'clock, 8:30, my laptop, my phone are off. I put my phone in the kitchen. I
Yep.
don't even look at it, right? After that, what do? I usually read probably a chapter, 20 pages,
Mhm.
stretch a little bit, and then if I feel like popping on the TV, which is neither here nor there, I will. But other than that, like the screen time is off. I got black blinds for my room. Absolute game changer for sleeping. If anyone does not do that, super cheap on Amazon. Highly suggest it. But other than that, that's what I do. And, I'll tell people what I do, and they're like, that's seriously all you do. I'm like, yeah, simplify it. Because, like you said, people try and make things as complicated as possible when in reality, all you got to do is simplify things. That's it. Fixate your focus, distance your distractions, and make every day count. You do those 3 things, you're checking the boxes.
Not only are those things free, but they also end up saving you money, both short term and long term. So short term, by eliminating distractions, you're not getting caught up in trends and fads and like simple quick fixes or quick jolts of like dopamine or serotonin. It's like you actually will put a money away in the bank to save for something more important or something that will actually benefit your life. But then also in the long term, like we're thinking about the investment on your health, your investment in your relationships, your investment in just your overall quality of life. So it's like the ROI on stuff like this is so important, and I wish more people would do and truly understand the impact of the stress management piece of how you respond to the world around you and not getting so quick to judge or be angry or to have really any emotion, to just sit for a minute and pause. Like pausing is so powerful because it gives you a moment to think about what it is that you need to do or what the right action would be. But how many times have we dropped the ball and been so quick to do something? Someone cuts you off in traffic, you flip them the bird, you honk on your horn. It's like you can get so frustrated, but guess what? You just caused your body to have a stress response. You got angry, your heart rate increased, your cortisol went up. And it's like, at the end of the day, it's like, we're all going to get home when we get home,
Mhm.
hopefully, you know what I'm saying? So drive safe, drive smart. But it's something where it's like, listen, someone cuts you off in traffic, whatever. I got a cool podcast. I'll give him that like extra, however many car lengths feet away, because clearly this person's in a hurry. I want to get home alive. So it's like, making sure you don't be so emotional. And I know in the self-love era, everyone's like, oh, you need to feel your emotions. And it's not that you can't feel or have emotions. That's not the point. As creatures of being human, we are fleshy, we are emotional, we have feelings.
Yep.
But it's having the self-awareness and being an adult where you don't allow those feelings and act upon them or allow them to cloud your judgment. That's why pausing is so powerful, because it gives you the ability to take a deep breath and analyze the situation instead of being immediate to react. Because more often than not, I would say like 70% of the time, your reaction out of anger is almost always going to be the wrong one. And then you're going to be backpedaling.
Yep. Fight or flight syndrome, right?
Hmm.
Action reaction. So very, very good point. But I think, like you said, me and you are kind of wired the same way, right? We respond very quickly. When in reality, sometimes the precision of taking that step back and pausing helps us pivot and actually make the better decision, right? And it's funny because, like, as you were talking about that, right? I had my personal assessment Monday at work.
Hmm.
It's like our mid-year examination, and that was the one key thing they had on me was you multitask so much more than anyone else, but we need you to step back and be more precise because you can do 10 things at once, which is great, but you also have a tendency to do too much where there's room for error, right? And then you think about it, okay, that makes sense, right? Quality over quantity. When we train, you don't do 50 sets, you do 10 sets and you bust your ass to complete failure because that's one of the biggest things that you preach about, right? Actually train till you fucking die.
Yeah,
Literally.
that's right.
But you take that aspect, quality over quantity, it's everything else in life. How you spend your money, right? Self-investment. When we talk about stress, people will buy $1,000 of supplements, but they won't buy a massage, go see a chiropractor. Um, Someone wrote in here a great pillow for your bed, right? A mattress, things like this. Long-term investments, very important. And if you make those compared to buying, I don't know, a thermogenic or something, because it's going to help me lose weight, right? You want to lose weight? Stick to a caloric deficit and be precise with
That's
it, right?
right.
Do your cardio. Go walk 5 extra minutes, right? Wake up 5 minutes earlier. Like, how hard is this? But people aren't wired that way because one of the first things we talk about, internal stressors, right? Unrealistic expectations, the comparison game. What does everyone want? Two words: instant gratification.
Yeah.
Nobody is in it for the long haul, and the phrase is always true, right? Win the marathon, don't win the sprint, because the sprint, one, is, let's say, for example, I'm going to do the carnivore diet. Okay, you might see results for a couple weeks,
Yeah.
maybe a month, but can you do this for a year, right? If you can't do it for a day, you won't be able to do it for a decade. And if you can't do it for a decade, you're not going to be a sustainable lifestyle to help you actually achieve the goals you want.
Mhm.
Take that aspect back to your relationships, back to your work, back to your family. Do you see how this all intertwines together, whether it's internal or external? It all comes back to time. It all comes back to accountability. And when you put two and two together, most people don't piece that puzzle together, and that's the problem. So this goes back to asking the questions, which is why I love that you do that, because how many times when you ask what you do during the week and the weekend looks like an absolute shit show, and the week is like spot on.
Exactly, exactly. I do like want to touch on the instant gratification since you and I both have very similar like fat to fit stories. How long have you kept your weight off?
So I played high school football when I was really overweight. So I graduated high school in 2006. My senior year, it was the game before the playoffs, right? And we played our rivals. I remember we were playing in Slippery Rock, which is like down towards Pittsburgh a little bit.
Okay.
And it was completely raining. It was muddy as hell. I went to take my first step, my foot got stuck, and the defensive lineman just like cut me in my knee. And literally, I was on the ground and my knee was facing up. Yeah, the trainer just came out and just threw like a towel on the ground. He's like, "Don't
Don't
even
see
move."
it.
Yep.
Crime scene.
But yeah, after that, I continued to eat like a lineman, right? Because, you're so active and
Mhm.
like one triple session, I lost like 8 pounds, which is it's crazy,
Yeah,
right? So I started to continue to eat the way I did, and it really wasn't reflecting in the mirror. I didn't feel great. And then I would say from my senior year of high school all the way till about my sophomore year of college, about 3 years.
okay.
So then I lost about, 90-ish pounds, right? 90 to 100 pounds. And then ever since then, I've kept it off, right? Because,
Yes.
since then I've done multiple bodybuilding shows and
Sure.
things like that. And I've held this image. But, it depends, like, depending on my goal, right? Like, I just finished the dieting phase. I was probably the lightest I was since 2017 when I did the West Virginia,
Sure.
right? And then, like, off season, right? Like, it's funny because, like, our coach, Austin, right? I have a similar metabolism like him. I will have to diet to my depths in order to get to a good set point. And then in the off season, I can eat an exaggerating amount of just 3,000, 4,000 calories and barely even budget scale. It's just like, it doesn't make
My
sense.
condolences, because I feel that.
Yep. Oh, you're there, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah. So you
absolutely.
know how it is.
Absolutely. But yeah, we'll say like, at least a decade, if not longer, because bodybuilding is not like yo-yo dieting. There's a rhyme and reason to it. It's methodical, it's purposeful, but still like, there's one thing about like having some slight fluctuations here and there, but like being 250 like overweight, obese is a lot different than just being like, bodybuilding, muscle. So it's one of those things where it's like the habits that you instilled that carried on for where you're at now and also carry on the rest of your life,
Hmm?
even if you continue to do like bulking and cutting or whatever. Same thing with me. It's like I've kept the weight off for a decade, even though we both have experiences with eating disorders and stuff like that. It's something where it's like the habits and the changes are important for that longevity, because any asshole can starve you for a month and you
Hmm.
lose 20 pounds, let's say, on a good day, right? Your one stomach flew away from like your goal weight, but like if you don't have those habits, if you don't have that long-term discipline and dedication and understanding that you are not a quick fix, you are always a work in progress, and that's a powerful thing. Like, what are we doing? You know what I'm saying? And I think it just does go back to like your priorities, why you're doing what you are doing, and what overall you are willing to give up that's holding you back. And that includes just like your perception of the world around you and your perception of stress, because stress will kill you.
Yeah.
Like it will.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing that I've really done too, from a coaching perspective, right, is if I get someone who's very stubborn with their ways and they're just like, yeah, this is what I want to do. This is how I want to achieve this goal. I say, okay, let's do this.
Oh yeah.
Right. Usually 4, 6 to 8 weeks in, they hit the biggest roadblock ever. And they're like, well, what do I do? And it's like, okay, you came to me, you want to lose 10 pounds, you're already doing 7 days of cardio, you're eating 1,400 calories. Where do you really think you can take your body?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Right. Okay. So let's do your plan and let's see how
Okay.
far we get, which is usually nowhere. Right. One thing I've always learned in life is sometimes your biggest breakdowns lead to your best
Yeah.
breakthroughs. And not only can we say that with bodybuilding, we can say that with relationships, we can say that with family, and even social settings, right? You can make the biggest mistake of your life. You can do the dumbest thing ever. But if you learn that life lesson, it will forever impact you with the way you think, the way you act, changing your
Mhm.
habits, which leads to your behaviors, and then it leads to better decision making, right? We've all done dumb shit. I'm sure you can look back and you're just like, what was I thinking? But it's probably for the best thing you've ever done. And that's why when a lot of people probably ask you, like, what would you change in your life? You're probably
Nothing.
going to say nothing. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because if you never did it, you'd never be where you are today.
Exactly. Like your failures like lead to your triumphs, which is pretty much what you said about breakdowns and breakthroughs. It's
Mhm.
something where it's like, but the key to that is if you learn from it, if you do
Yes.
something about it. But too many times, especially nowadays, where like people are just, I hate using the word soft and squishy, but that's kind of what it is, where it's like they're not willing to take accountability for their actions, or they want to blame the world or blame others for their circumstance. And it's just something where it's like it's not going to help you. You know what I'm saying? Like
Mhm.
you receive your true self-love or your true self-respect by understanding your power, and understanding that power starts with how you view things, right? Like your brain is so powerful, it will be the reason why you don't follow through on something,
Mhm.
right? Like in your case, like when you had your shoulder injury, like you were extremely negative, right? And like had you chosen to go down that path and like continued on with that negativity, your brain would have been the reason why you stopped, not your shoulder. You
Mhm.
know, it's not a physical injury, because there are people that go through horrific accidents or horrific things. They lose limbs, they lose whatever, and they continue to go and they get better because of it. So it really is, as cliche as all these things are, it really is mind over matter.
Yep. Perception.
Hmm.
You know, your perception of situation, right? So you can sit there and cry about how much your shoulder hurts, right? But what did I do, right? I found my love back for reading, right? I went back
There
to
you go.
church. You know, things like this where I really enhanced my mental and spiritual health. After I started to get back on my feet, luckily for me, my employer, we have a thing, it's called a coaching network. I worked with a personal development coach for 6 months. And
Nice.
literally, yep, literally, I would just go in there and just be like, here's a little bit on my background, a
Mhm.
little bit more about me. He goes, where do you think your weak points are, right? So week one, write down your weak points. Week two, address the weak points. Week three, go through your weak points and how you can make them strong points. And then from then on out, he would give me homework where it's like, okay, I know you're weak here. You're weak with communication in public settings. I'm going to challenge you to try to go out, start small conversations, start these things with other people and see how they react, right? Because once you build that confidence, just like with the client, if you build the confidence in their decision making, their past stressors literally become a thing of the past because now they have the power and the confidence in their skin to create healthier boundaries, say no, and then also change their habits because not only are they stop living in their negativity, they start to be proactive about it and make it a positivity. And I think those are the really big things that I see with client success is very weak boundaries. They let people walk over them. They don't know how to say no.
Yeah.
And because of this, their life is a continual cycle. And what do? They go on Instagram. Oh, she has goals. I want to be her. They're playing the comparison game. And then they think that, oh, I can just do this in the flip of a switch. When in reality, that's not how life works.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. No, pausing is powerful. So that way you can get like that bird's eye view and have that perception. And then something that's even like been helpful for me is in those moments of pausing, like praying or even just like expressing gratitude for like the smallest of things.
Mhm.
Like for example, like what part of my nighttime routine, this might seem silly to some people. I will take my little push broom that honest to God, I should be throwing in the trash. It is an old ass push broom. I think I've had it for 6 or 7 years. I need a new one, but it's my push broom and I'm not getting rid of it. I will just push broom my kitchen, just clean it up. That's part of my nighttime routine is I'll brush off the counters, brush off the crumbs, and I'll sweep them up. And then that's how I know that like I am like winding down for the night. As soon as we get off this live, I'm literally gonna do that. I'm gonna push through my kitchen, wash my face, brush my teeth, floss, because good hygiene in your mouth.
Yep.
But like it doesn't have to be like all of these crazy things. Like I don't need to like pet my cow goodnight. I don't need to do anything. I just push through my kitchen, sweep it up. That's how I'm done for the night, and then I go snuggle in and watch Eric play video games that I don't care. But like I'm one of those I can watch video games and be totally fine. Like I don't I know there's some people that get overstimulated, but like I don't know, Eric doesn't play like crazy games. It's just like sometimes like deductive reasoning and I'm like, wow, this is boring as fuck and I fall straight to sleep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good way to get to bed earlier, right?
Dude, I'm telling you that and like being on like HRT progesterone, that shit knocks you out. It's a
Mm-hmm.
dream.
But I mean, we wake up early, right? So for us, like we go to bed at 9, 9:30 at the latest, 10
Oh, like
maybe.
8.
Yep,
Like let's
8.
be honest, like sometimes 7:30, like I am
Wow.
when I go to sleep, I go to sleep. Like my, I don't like. That's the thing is, I have not set an alarm for myself in like maybe if I travel, you know what
Mhm.
I'm saying, to not miss a flight. But like, I wake up between 5 and 6 a.m. religiously, and it's
Yeah.
like if my body needs more, it'll sleep until 6. If it needs less, I'm up at 5:11. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm. Yeah, I'm the same way too, right? I mean, even it's crazy too, because like I go to a lot of live shows and concerts, and
Hmm.
I'll get home at 1, 1:30. I will not set
Up at
an
5.
alarm. I'll be up at
Yep.
5. Every
Yep.
single time. Yep. I have two alarms set because my first year of college, my very first class, my alarm did not go off and it was on the total opposite side of the campus. And I was like, oh my God, 7 a.m. class. I got up at like 6:53 and I still made it with one
So you're
minute to
hauling
spare.
ass.
So
Love
from
it.
now on, I set one alarm next to my bed and then one away from my bed. So when it goes off, I have to
Hmm.
get off to turn it off. So that way it makes you get up. Because most people, what do? They put their phone right next to their bed and they just snooze,
Yeah.
right? If you put it across the room, you actually have to get your ass up and you have to turn it off. Then you're up.
Yeah, dude, I got Eric for his birthday, I think. Like I got two campy gifts for him just for shits and kicks. One was like a neck massager that he actually loves and actually will use it. This other one was like a little alarm system. It kind of looked like this, but like you would like it would you could set your alarm, but then like to wake you up, it would like be bright light and it would like run away from you. He's like, I'm not fucking using this. I was like, yeah, I figured, but I was like, either
Wow.
the camping neck massager or the alarm system that tortures you and you have to like get your ass out of bed. But
My
it is what it
God.
is.
That's like one of those like what are those things called at like Christmas time where you exchange gifts with people and you
Oh, like a
don't know
white
who that.
elephant? Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
that is a white elephant gift because you would get it and the person's reaction would be priceless. Like to the point where you just start cracking up. Like
dude,
that's 10 out of 10. That is
for,
awesome.
for real.
But
Any final thoughts or closing or anything like that? I know we had like a really good discussion and a good outline
yeah,
going.
like you said, books, right? When you talked about like learning from failures, right? I have one right here. It's John Maxwell Failing Forward. It is probably the best book I've read in the last 2 years.
Really?
I'll
Okay.
I'll send you this whole list. I
Nice.
have a couple other ones. I'm reading through one on psychology is called Patronic. It has to deal with attachment styles. So
Oh,
people are
mine is
secure, insecure.
insecure,
Mm.
anxious, insecure. I
Yep.
think. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
whole book is on those three attachment styles, examples of those people, the habits they do,
Hmm.
and then how you can actually tailor to communicate with them, right? Because as a coach, what do we try to do? We try to find common
Yeah.
ground with our client, right? We meet them halfway. But a lot of times, with these destructive habits and things that they go through, we have to push and shove a little bit in order to find that common ground, right? We have to break a little bit of a barrier in order to create a new foundation for success. And that book kind of goes into how you would communicate with that. So that's Platronic,
Hmm.
Failing Forward from John Maxwell. And then if you haven't, very, very common books, Atomic Habits, top seller, absolutely phenomenal. And then Rewire Your Anxious Brain. A lot of
Oof.
us are anxious and we don't even know it. And
Oof.
speaking of stress, hits the spot. So those are some good ones. I have a lot to go through, and like I said, I'll shoot you that list. But I would say honestly, I learned a lot through reading, and I know a lot of the quarterly classes we take. That's one thing a lot of people bring up is how did we learn? We just read books, right? We
Yep.
didn't have mentors, we didn't have people to teach us all the information.
No.
The knowledge is out there. You just have to devote the time in order to learn it, and that's the problem with people. They don't want to take that time to learn, right? They just want to, oh, I'm going to take this class. I'll be a wizard. Doesn't work like that.
Masterclass. Let's go.
Yeah. So I would say closing thoughts is, stress is a very diverse beast, right? It
Hmm.
attacks us in many ways, internally and externally. And like you said, we can go back in the script. We went over a ton of examples,
Hmm.
ways on which we can combat stress. A lot of it comes down to decision making, our behaviors and habits. Outside of that, what can you look into? Your day-to-day decision making, how you start your morning, master your mornings,
Yep.
right? Big thing. Your nightly routine, which I think a lot of people can fine tune, with just some very small tips. But
Yep.
outside of that, I think the biggest thing to look at per person when you try to troubleshoot when it comes to stress is understanding them, right? Their past, their trauma, what scars them, what provides gratitude in their life, knowing their inner circle, and then touching on some of those external factors like their work and their family, right?
Yep.
Where are the triggers in their life? And if you can kind of underline those and try and rewire the process to where it can be turned into a positive, it removes that 70-80% of negative thoughts in their life and helps them find a better proactive approach to their life. So That's my 2 cents. I'd love to hear yours.
Yeah, I'd say the biggest one that's helped me, and again, I always like want to use myself as a case study because I don't want to ever come across as like I'm better than you because I'm not. I'm not at
Mhm.
all. Something that has just helped me is pausing to gain perception, to accept constructive feedback because those books will tear you a new one. And they
Yep.
should, right? They should be calling you out on your poor destructive behaviors. I have them too, and also receiving constructive feedback and criticism from your social network, from your inner circle. I ask Eric all the time, how can I be a better wife to you? How can I be a better coach to my athletes? Like, it's something where it's like I want to constantly get better, which requires that constant feedback. But
Mhm.
you have to be really careful with that one because if you're not gonna go to that person for their advice, probably don't listen to their opinion. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? So, choose your friends and choose your circle wisely, but don't stop trying to get better. And don't do it out of the fear of not being perfect because newsflash, none of us here are ever going to be perfect. You'll always miss the mark every single time, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't try to constantly better yourself so you can better the people around you and then end up bettering your world, not necessarily the world but your world, and that impact means something. But it starts with pausing. It starts with having a whole perspective, being less emotional, being less reactive, and being more proactive. And then I think a final thing is just expressing gratitude, like for the smallest of
Mhm.
things, the biggest of things, your children, your health, your house. Like the world like can fall apart instantly. We see on the news these horrors, these tragedies, right? Just being thankful for the fact that you're able to have clean drinking water, you're able to wash your hands, maybe pray at meal times, even if you're not religious. Like you don't have to be like practicing religion to just be thankful for the fact that you have like a warm meal in front of you, because that at the end of the day is so powerful because you are recognizing and understanding that like you worked for this. This is a blessing. You have
Mhm.
another day on this earth, and so you should do good and be good so that way goodness radiates. And that's, I think, my final closing thoughts.
Yeah, and I love how you put that, we're not all perfect,
Hmm.
right? One of the biggest things I always say is we are imperfect people in
Hmm.
an imperfect world, and all of us are broken, and
Yeah.
all of us had to put ourselves back together in order to be whole, right? And I think if you've never experienced major life obstacles, you've never really lived life.
Oh.
And there will come a point in time where you will hit rock bottom, and adversity is healthy, but also being selfish is healthy too. And I think a lot of people look at that as a negative
Mm.
aspect, when in reality, being selfish is
Oh
self-investment.
yeah.
And that's the number one piece, because if you don't love yourself, you can't love anyone else, right?
Mhm.
And I'm sure being married, right? You set yourself to a high standard, not only in your coaching, but also personally, which makes you a very receptive wife. And that's probably why you and Eric get together so well, is because you have that boundary, which is phenomenal.
Exactly. The biggest thing that's helped that relationship is I even ask my friends this, but if I ask someone, hey, how can I love on you today? Like that's some shit. And that's something that people like don't understand as like either spouses or even friends. Like, hey, how can I love on you? How can I support
Mhm.
you? And sometimes it's like, hey dude, I'm having a really busy day. I just need space. Done. Like I'm thinking of you, I'm rooting for you. I hope you have a good day. Sometimes it's like, yo, shit hit the fan. I need someone to talk to. Yo, let's hop on a quick call. Like I have 10, 15 minutes. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
But like the world ain't about you, and I'm not saying you have to give yourself to everyone. Give yourself to the people that give to you. But again, like you said, being selfish is not necessarily a negative thing. But once you have your oxygen mask on, then start assisting others. Don't just hoard the oxygen.
Mhm.
Don't be that hoe.
Oh, you went there.
I
Don't
know.
be that hoe. I love that. That is awesome. That is awesome. Hey, it's almost Eric time for you here, so I'm gonna let you wrap up. But yeah, this was awesome. And like I said, I owe you a book list. I will get on top of that here shortly. But outside of that, if you need anything, you know where to find me. So
I appreciate you.
yeah, yeah, and I appreciate you, reaching out. And I'm glad we could do this within 48 hours, right? We kind of scrambling for a time. We're like, you know what,
Dude, we
Wednesday,
were
let's
like,
just do
yo,
it.
let's go.
Yep.
It's like your
Hey.
7 a.m. class. We hauled shit and we made it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I start work at 7, but I'm usually there by like 6:30. So, that's why I'm an early riser. Get shit done in the morning, set yourself up for the night, and it just makes life a whole lot easier. So, That's what
Oh
it's
yeah,
going to
well,
be.
thanks so much for your time and hopping on. And guys, thank you so much for watching, whether you're watching us live or watching the replay. Of course, if you have questions for either Bob or myself, like
Hmm.
please DM us, whether you need book recommendations from Bob, or even if you're interested in coaching from either one of us, we're happy to hop on a call, talk to you guys, get to know you guys, and help you guys. So at the end of the day, that's all we're here to do is we've made mistakes, we've gone through our own journeys, and that's why most coaches are coaches, is we just want people to either not go through the same mistakes we made or just be better as a general whole. But thanks so much, guys, and we'll catch you next
Take
time.
care.
Bye.
Later.